So let's just proceed. I think we will be looking at the theoretical approaches to public policy. In some books, you find them, these being referred to as the models, right? But let's just look at the theories, and we shall be looking at models sometime later. But we need first to understand, when we talk about theoretical models in public policy, what is it that we're talking about? We need to understand what a theory is supposed to be, and also see how this fits into what we're supposed to be covering this morning here. Now, when we talk about a theory, we're talking about something which is very systematic and comprehensive, and it does provide a very consistent explanation of a relationship between variables, right? And I think you are doing some research work, and you understand what a variable is. A variable is something that gives you or explains the relationship between what causes certain things to happen and the effects, right? So a variable is something that explains the cause-effect relationship. That's what it is. Now, theories will give you the evidence for those things around. The evidence on the cause and the effect of something that happens around will be explained or provided for by a theory. In other words, a theory gives you a very clear and reliable prediction of what is going to happen, right? So to give you a prediction of what is going to happen, and also it's very easy to predict a result of what is going to happen. That's why when you're carrying out your research work, you look at the variables, whatever it is, and so forth. We insist on you looking at issues of theories, that theoretical framework, right? Because that theoretical framework in your research work does give you a way to predict what is going to come out through your examination of the conceptual frameworks, right? So that's what it is. So a theory is very systematic, comprehensive, and gives you an explanation which is very consistent. And also, it can help you to predict the actual results. In other words, a theory gives you the actual reality on the ground. It gives you the facts. A theory is something which provides a scientific evidence. That's what it is. Now, when you look at a theory in the context of policy here, what we are saying is that, you remember when we started looking at issues of policy analysis, when I defined policy analysis, I said we have looked at the pre and post type of analysis, right? The pre type of analysis in a policy gives you an opportunity to predict clearly what you may expect to get as a result, right? So it can give that predictive type of understanding of what you want to do and how you're going to achieve your results out of that. And gives you a systematic way of how you're going to achieve what you want to do. Now, then a theory in the post will try to prove and check to give you the evidence, scientific evidence, right? That's why I do the evaluation and something like that. And if it is not able to give you the result, then something must have gone wrong somewhere. So that's what the policy actually does. So here, you find that when we talk about policy and theory and evidence, these things will give you what you call the facts. And facts, in most cases, are things that can be proven. If there's something is a fact, that thing should be able to be proven scientifically or otherwise, right? If you say, okay, the sun rises from the east and sets in the west, you can prove that scientifically, right? Yes. And there's several things that you can do. Now, even in the policy formulation, implementation, and all the processes that go along with that, you can use a theory to prove and also particularly predict the result. So that is what a theory would do. And remember, in any theory, there will always be those variables that you're trying to compare, right? The cause effect, something like that. If you are developing a policy, we mentioned that you can only develop a policy where one, there's an established need, right? Either by the citizens, the population, or as an organization having seen a gap in what is supposed to be available for the citizens. Then you can come up with the idea of coming up with a policy. Now, all these things would depend on how do you predict the outcome, right?
So let's go back.
Because that forces you to come up with a policy, right? That will be the need. And the effect or the outcome would be the result of what would come or accrue out of your policy implementation. So let's look at one of the theories here. We call the institutional theory.
Just need to put up the songs, isn't it? Yes. Very careful, guys.
An institutional theory in policy analysis focuses on that which is in nature. An institution, by its implication, by its nature, does not belong to a single entity, right? You cannot have an institution for a single individual.
That's how it goes.
We are as an institution, you are an individual, right? But if you are three of you here, you can create an institution, right? And become an institution. So when we talk about institutional theory in public policy, we're talking about public in nature.
Example.
Right? And also, when we talk about public policy, from the beginning, we did recognize that public policy, in most cases, is a government policy, right? So all public policies are normally government policies. And when we talk about an institution in this context, therefore, it means an institution in the context of public policy is a government institution. That's very clear? Yes. We talk any mention of institution in the context of public policy means a government institution. Now, institutional theory normally do relate to a particular sector. When we talk about institutions, government institutions, these are sectors in government, right? So when we talk about institutional theories, they will always be focusing on a particular sector that they intend to focus on as they address a sectoral issue. What it means is that when we talk about government institutions, means of education, for example, right, is a government entity, right? It's a government institution, and it has its own policies. That's what it means. So policies in the context of institutional theory are policies which are developed by individual sectors, right? Fisheries cannot develop policies for education. It's impossible, right? It's not their sector. They develop policies related to their work in fisheries. So to institutions that deal with issues of children, whatever it is, cannot develop policies which belong to forests and something like that. So all public policies are sector-based. That is one of the easiest way to understand it. All public policies are sector-based because they are developed by specific institutions charged with the responsibility to meet or address needs of citizens in that particular sector. So we find that even policies that are being developed, they will be sectoral in nature. And when we are looking at the issues of policy, difference between public and private policies, you remember I mentioned that the public policies, in most cases, will talk to each other, right? They normally talk to each other. And that's why the process of coming up with a policy becomes very, very it's very intersectoral. Moves from one sector to the next and something like that. And there are quite a lot of consultations around between and among sectors, including the public itself. That is how you would look at that. Let's proceed. Now, because government institutions are charged with the responsibility to produce or come up or develop policies, it means that the legitimacy of those policies, again, are reinforced by those respective sectors. What it means is that a policy in education is supposed to be enforced or reinforced by people in the education sector. That's what it means, right? You cannot take that education policy to be reinforced by a policy in the security agency, for example. It cannot. So the enforcement, the legitimacy, and all sorts of things are sector specific or they're institutional specific. So this is what it means here. So here, you note that each institution, therefore, has the responsibility to come up with policies to address issues that require their attention. And if we go back, if I ask you a very simple question, how did I say that policies can be developed? How can the process to develop a policy be initiated? Maybe that's a simple question. I mentioned that there are so many ways through which a policy or policy formulation can be initiated, right? One, by the public itself or the citizens, where they feel that there's need for some service to be provided to them. So the public can come out and advocate for development of a policy to address an issue. Number two, it would be private entities or organizations through advocacy. So NGOs, churches, whatever it is, can come out and also try to request the government to come up with the policies to address specific issues that those entities have actually identified as important in people's lives. And also the number three area where policies can be initiated is by institutions themselves. By institutions, we mean the government, right? Each institution is tasked with several activities that they're supposed to carry out for the benefit of the citizens. Now, in the process of carrying out those activities, institutions may identify an area that requires address or redress, and they can also come up with a policy to address that particular need in that particular instance. So there are so many ways through which you can do that. Environmental factors, for example, can also lead to the development of a policy to address issues of environment at that particular time. We have an example of Fred, whatever it is. Remember Fred, whatever. Something had to come up, Cyclone Fred. Something had to come up as a policy to address those victims of the cyclone. So you have all these things around. Economic issues, for example, can lead to a development of a policy to address economic specific issues. Poverty, right? As something which is a social, has a social implication on people's livelihoods. You can come up as an institution to come up with specific policies to address those things. I think we have quite a number of these types of policies which have come out through these 3-4 areas that I've just mentioned to you on how actual policies can become part of institutional activities at government level. All right. Now, as much as sectors develop and formulate policies, all you must know that at the top of all, there's government, right? And it is at that level where actually those policies become government policies. That is all. In other words, the government is made up of sectors, right? Institutions and whatever it is. So whatever policy is made down here, during the process of recognition or legitimization, then that policy becomes part of the system within government. That's what happens. I think that's step. Joyce, always the first. Why today? So it can't work. It's not working. It's not working. It is working. Even it works because of it. It's about to show here. Pasiye ntisie. Ndio chisie paja chisie. Yes. All right, so let's continue. We are looking at that. What I was stopped at, Joyce, we are looking at the theories in public policy. And I just mentioned that I really just try to explain what the theory is, and also we're not trying to look at what we call institutional theories, where I said institutional theories, when we mention about institutional theories in public policy, we're talking about the institutions that deal with issues of policy formulation for and on behalf of government, and that all these institutions basically are sectors in government, representing ministries and or agencies. And by implication, all policies that they make, and when these policies come into operation, they become government policies as an overall controller of what is happening within government operations. So here, you find that the mere fact that we're talking about public policy, it is a government policy. Okay. So, because of that, there's no government policy which can be developed and implemented without government involvement, right? Now you ask me, what do you mean? Can an NGO not develop a policy, for example, without government involvement? Is it possible for an NGO or any other organization to develop a policy without government involvement? Yes or no? Rubaini Esther. Can an organization which is not government in nature develop a policy without government involvement? This government. Was told that yeah. So what I want to do, this is a very simple question. Yes, any organization can develop a policy, right? For purposes of facilitating that organization's work. So even private entities can have their own policies. That's why when we started off, we looked at policies, public and private, right? Yes. So private entities can develop their own policies. Now my question was, can they develop those policies without the involvement of government? Yes, they can do that. Except that all those policies will still be subservient to or answerable to government main policy in that particular sector. So you can be a church with your own policies around, right? But those policies eventually have to be synchronized with public policies, right? You can be an NGO with your own policies, but your policy too must feed into what the public policy says in that particular instance. I gave you an example last time of labor policy, for example, right? individual institutions in the private sector have their own policies on human resource, whatever it is, right? But when something goes wrong within that particular institution, they'll be getting recourse. Otherwise, if public policies were free to do what they want to do, then the things wouldn't work out, right? Everybody would just come around and say, it's a thing, you're fired. In the university. I will go, the only public, the private human resource policy. You are fired, go. Yeah, I'll go. But I'll go back to government and say, these guys are working for them to fire. Why? Right? So to answer and tell government why they fired me. No, it was in the 50s, it was this, it was coming in, like this. So once the government satisfied that yes, I transgressed on the private policy requirements, they said, oh, you are fired because you are negligent. It ends. Oh no, you're fired even because you didn't take cognizance of his rights to answer. So you pay him so much. So this is how private policy and public policy are work. All right. The only important issue I must note is that the legitimacy of these policies is drawn from the government's public policy. That's why each policy, in most cases, will have a law accompanying it, right? There's also some law. But this is not absolute. There's some policy which have no laws around. But we all know that laws can always be applied. So where there's no law, there is something that can be used to address the situation which is there. So far, this is how the institutional policies work. Let's look at the second type, the other theory. You see, Joyce, we're going to look at theories, 3-4 theories, and I move back to look at which is so this one is called the rational choice theory. So no time, I'm going to be very, very fast. The 3 weeks before the exam, on the 11th of November.
Yeah, we said it was 11th.
November, today's 10th October. Of November. Let's look at the plus. You can see how school life is very fast and short. Very fast and short. All right, so let's look at what we call the rational choice theory. The rational choice theory, if you get to some authors of some books, they just call it choice theory, right? Or they'll call it action theory or rational action theory, something like that, to depend on which individual you are trying to deal with. Now, the rational choice theory or the choice theory, and it's quite broad. It has been, it covers a lot of fields, right, and disciplines. The original and very, very original rational choice theory, I think it was by the sociologists, Emil Durkheim, Tucker Parsons, and others, who came up with the issue of rational choice, right, as a theory in the social system or in society. Right? And after that, the economists also started to look at how people make choices, to choose, right? How you choose. What makes you choose to buy proteins and not life, right? What makes you choose? Just a simple example. Why would you choose to buy an egg and not soya pieces? Joyce, what do you do?
It's a choice.
The price of the thing.
Yeah?
Different prices.
So it will be prices.
Yeah, prices.
Next, quality, preference. What do you like? Do you like an egg? Or do you like soya pieces? Do you like beans? Those are choices that you make, right? Now, in rational choice theory, according to sociologists, is that people make choices based on the consideration of whether too many things around. Will I derive the best satisfaction, right, from what I'm going to do? Something like that, right? Will I get it cheaper, but I still get satisfied, right? Just a simple example. Let's assume he buys meat or chicken, right? And you buy soya pieces or beans, right? What's the difference? Both these are foods. Yeah? So what's the actual reason behind you buying those things? Those things you'll be asking the question why, right? You find that the outcome there is to get satisfied and beat the hunger, right? Do you mean that if you eat soya, hunger will not disappear, and eat chicken, hunger will not disappear? They will disappear. But why would you choose to say, it's the same hunger, I'll eat chicken, I'll be okay. I'll eat soya pieces, I'll be okay. So, rational choice theory is about choices. And those choices, according to sociologists, depend on what you think is better for yourself, right? And you choose that. And you look at so many things. You can look at the pleasure that you get out of that, right? Or you can look at the satisfaction that you get out of that. You can get at the actual result of why you intend to buy or the things that you want to have. That's the rational choice theory. A very simple example, maybe, of the rational choice theory is the people who drink alcohol, for example, right? Alcohol is alcohol. Is exactly the same, is it? For those who take alcohol, for who you take alcohol. It's the same result. Drunkenness, right? And free mind. Let's look at that. Now, the one who drinks cachasu and the one who drinks cachasu at 1,000 pounds, and the one who drinks Blue Label, whiskey Blue Label, at 70,000 what a small toilet, or 90,000, 100,000 small toilet. What's the difference? Both of them will be drunk, right? Yes. But what is it? What difference is it? The price, the preference, the expertise, but also your social status.
Yeah.
It's also part of that, right? Yes. I may want to get drunk, and I know I can go and drink the church very cheaply, 500, but I cannot go there because of my social status, right? Yes. So, rational choices theory revolves around a lot of issues around it. An individual preference, right? Your social status, your economic status as well, right? If somebody gave you, say, here is the 100,000, you go to this grab and just do one touch of drug level. That is all. On your way, I'm sure you run away and say, when you come back, I must make sure and prove that you are drunk. See your check? Yeah. I'm sure you run somewhere and buy a red tea at 1,000, think get drunk and come out. I drugs. You are in the rational choice theory is about choice. Now, in policy terms, governments or institutions make policies based on choices. And those choices, which are, as we proceed, let's see, is they're picked up from what we call alternatives. In other words, government has always too many alternatives on what to do on a particular issue. That's what it means. When there's an issue, government usually has a lot of choices or a lot of alternatives rather to choose from to address a particular issue. Now, the rational choice theory in public policy, therefore, is about what type of alternative is good for you as government, and how good is it to meet the need or address the need of the people around. That's what the rational choice theory is all about. So here, it does help us to understand how can we rationalize, right? To rationalize and to put in logic in the way you do your things. Now, that's the logical way of doing things or making your choices. That's what it goes to rationalize. So it's about how do you use logic in choosing something which is going to address an issue, whether economic or social or environmental. How do you choose, for example, to come up with a policy in that area? There's a very, very good example in terms of how government can choose and rationalize or how to come up with the policy. Let's get an example of Lower Shire. Yeah, that's a good example. Lower Shire is an area that we all know suffers from floods every year, right? Year in, year out of the floods, people were affected, right? And year in, year out, the government will go there to support the people with food and everything and shelter. And NGOs and the UN system will also go there. Why don't the government make a policy to address this issue once and for all? What do you think? Is it too powerless that cannot give a come on, everybody move up, rush it up? Or what is it? Using the rational choice theory. What do you think is the problem with the people in the Russia? They will cry every day, they lose their elections every day, but they still stay. Move up, they still remain around. What is it? So we find that if you look at the rational choice theory, the way it presents it, people too have the right to make choices. And that's why government is trying to remove those people out of those flood-prone areas. Because people, as a unit, right, have the collective voice about no, we cannot move out, right? We have all our grandparents buried here. Our graves are here. So we cannot move out. Simple. Very simple, small logic. Sociology of the nature, the culture and the norms, right? Now, the government is trying to break those norms to force people to go out. And what they'll do is they'll agree, okay, we're moving out. They move out, go up our area. Government gives us money, they build shelters, whatever it is. Comes the rains, they'll come closer to the water, so they swept again, and government goes again. So they say, take situation, it's a win-win situation, which is not working for government. And it's not also working for those people. So the rational choice theory, that's where it comes in to explain why certain actions are taken the way they do, or the way they are, right? And here, you find that the rational choice theory is much more of a behavioral theory, right? It's much more of a behavioral theory. People decide not to move out, because they just agree not to move out. I buried my assets, my grandmother, my grandmother here. But is it true that if you bury your grandmother, you must be there? Is your grandmother there? Or the bones are there? What do you know? So you find that it becomes more of a behavioral issue, and every behavioral issue is very complicated to deal with. Right? That's first thing. It's very different. Because the behavioral issue is in the mind of the individual. And to break that jinx in the mind of the individual becomes quite complicated. So you can see how the rational choice theory comes in, and also how different it can be when it comes to implementation. Right. And also, there's a gentleman called Elster, Elster. It's an old book, 1989. States that when individuals are faced with several courses of action, right, people will choose what is likely to give them more benefits. Now, I give an example of the lower shield, right? People look at that, okay, here we are. Yes, we're very vulnerable, people die, and all sorts of things. But they look at, okay, let's look at what is the benefit if we agree as a social action to government or towards government. Right? So they say, what we do is this. When it happens, let's all cry to government. You know, we are all dying here, this something like that. Right? Government comes, helps them, and they say, yeah, that's a benefit. So the next thing we do is, when they say move out, let's move out. Don't argue. Because by moving them out, government is also spending money on them, right? To go and resettle somewhere. And they agree. October 8, all of us must be back. Right? That's social action. So they'll be down there, and the flags come again. So the cycle just goes on and on. It's a behavioral issue. Now, to break these jigs, you need, I don't know how. If you're asking me, how would I do it? How can I do it? I think we've done this when I was in service, so we've done this over and over again. Go there and see, talk to them. They say, no, sure, no, we're going. They'll go out. Come back 2, 3, 4 months down the line and come back. Well, they should deliver back. So, social action and the choice theory, that's why you can get them crashing sometimes. So here, you find that what it means there, it means that when you're coming up with a policy, you must look at all these issues around, right? How do you deal with things like this? You remember we shall come across that. Last time I talked about the throughput, right? A policy that you do, what is going to create, and what is going to come out of the same policy, and how you're going to manage and deal with that one there. So this becomes quite interesting. So the fact that the rational choice theory basically is rooted in how you make rational decisions. Rational choice theory is about rational decision-making processes. In other words, how logical is your decision that you make? How logical is your decision that you want to make? We are decided to do anything, but is it going to give, is it logical? It's going to give you the benefit that it must approve from what has happened. So you have all these things which actually come along in those lines. So here, as a policymaker, you must look at alternatives. Alternatives are equally good choices that you can have for yourself, but you must pick out the one who's going to give you the most benefit. That's what the choice rational choice theory is all about. Choose the most that gives you better benefit, right? Let's assume they say, Esther, we're giving you 10 million today, right? But this one must be spent before 4 o'clock today. Okay, just what can you 10 million today, 7:30 in the morning. 4:30, come and report. It must be 00 balance. What do you do? But conditions. You cannot buy a house. You cannot buy a car. You cannot buy any fixed asset. But all this money is by 4:30.
I'll invite my friends.
It's a choice.
I'll invite my friends.
What?
Invite my friends, we go for shopping, eating. We will do this.
No. The conditions are, here is your money, right?
How much alone?
Inviting your friends is not part of it.
How much?
10 million.
10 million.
4:30, declare zero balance. Right? Okay.
Is it? Yeah.
Okay.
No. They have given you the option to donate. It is yours. You don't have to donate. You cannot donate. It's yours. You must spend it and go, yes, Dabura is in Dabura. He is in balance.
You don't have to buy for anyone?
No. You.
Ogula mafuta. Mafuta.
Which one is the mafuta?
Mafuta upikira wakati tuna 20 liters zikati. Wala wewe uoneshe uliko hapa
And the rule is, whatever you are buying, must be one item.
Ikari ndarama yawe.
The one item mpaka na mira ite.
Yeah, so here, when we're talking about rational choices theory, what do you have before you as alternatives to use money as an example, right? So even in policies, those are what we look at. If we craft this policy, are we going to get the benefit out of those or not, right? If not, what else is available for us to do and have those things? But others will give you that 10 million to spend by 4:30 without rules and the regulations to control that. You can spend it within 1 minute. See you. 1 minute you can spend 10 million if there are no conditions.
Yeah.
Yes. You just go by their cars, they are just saying go. It's good. Yeah. So that's what it means. So in the policy making processes, this theory states that you must always look for alternatives. How many alternatives do you have? And after those, you must weigh them to find out the one who's going to give you the maximum benefit. Now, you find that now in government, whether we look at the maximum benefit or not is something else. But in most cases, it's about what can we do to the citizens so that they get the service that they're supposed to have, and something like that. So here, the rational choice theory is about social gains, right? The rational theory is about the cost-benefit analysis. You analyze the cost versus the benefits. And if that ratio does not tilt towards a benefit, then you forget about it. We shall cover that as we proceed. So you just basically just leave it. So you find that the choice of a policy must always favor the one with the less cost. Right? So in the social, this choice theory states that it is better to choose a policy which is going to have very little costs involved, right? But it must have more social gains. So whatever you craft for people, ensure that people benefit more than the money that you're going to put into. In terms of practicality at implementation level, I think this becomes quite debatable. Whether it is possible or not, this becomes pretty debatable in that system. So here, what it means is that a policy can only be considered to be rational when the difference between the value that it will achieve and the value that it gets is positive. What you are going to achieve and what you are going to get is positive. What you put in and what you get out, what you get out should be better than the one that you put in, should be greater than the one that you put in. That is a rational way of looking at things. In other words, you are getting more social gain or economic gain than what you spend on that particular issue. Now, how now do you choose this when you have a lot of alternatives around? So when you have a lot of alternatives around, you only choose the one that fits the value and the output being greater or the social gain being greater than your inputs. Now, what it means is that you are going to look at all the alternatives that you have. So in policy analysis, the pre-policy analysis, that is the analysis you carry out, you conduct before you come into having your policy formulated must assess all these things to understand which one out of the 5 alternatives that we have should be picked out as a policy because it will give us a greater value for money. So it means in policy analysis, as I mentioned earlier, it's not only at the end where you evaluate, but even before you start working on a policy, you must carry out that type of analysis to choose the alternative that's going to be much more beneficial to you and particularly to the citizens. Now, let's look at this term we call rationalism, to rationalize or rationalism. Rationalism is about how you calculate in your policy formulation process. I'm going to emphasize on that. When you are rationalizing on the type of policy alternative you choose, don't look at what we call a linear approach. A linear approach where you just look at one issue. Right? For example, njala. Sio hiyo, angalia njala. So what the policy to address issues of njala. If you are going to address an issue to do with the hunger, for example, and decide a policy to address issues that have to do with the hunger, you may find yourself in some big trouble. At the end, it may create what I mentioned as the throughput area. It may create, for example, social upheavals, right? How do you choose who to get whatever things like those? You may have some economic impacts, negative impacts on the economy, or even just on the political sphere, right? So, in your rationalizing, when you rationalize in your policy formulation, you have to take consideration of all the factors around. That is what policy analysis is supposed to be. The pre-policy formulation analysis is supposed to focus on all issues across the board. The social implications, the political implications, economic implications, environmental implications, things like those. You have to look at all these things and try to measure whether what is going to cost you in all these sectors or these areas or spheres is going to be less than what you are going to give to people that they are going to be supported. So it's quite complicated. You can focus on the social factor only to discover that they create a lot of political upheaval, for example. Right? Let's assume that says, okay, there's a lot of hunger. Let me target all women and not men, right? Because women take care of the families and all sorts of things, and that's your justification. That would be very, very wicked justification. You will make discover that as you implement your policy, all men will decide not to participate, right? Yeah, so because I cut the women and the food, men can decide to boycott what you need, so what happens? Or men don't support women's activities. So you can create that situation which may actually unravel or disturb the normal operations of society or community as well. And not only that, you may choose a policy, one simple thing, I think that I should also mention. You remember I mentioned about the public policies as government policies, right? Mm-hmm. And institutions and sectors being responsible for development of those policies and implementation. Now, let's assume that the government comes up with a policy which is divisive, for example, right? And it is so much political in nature. It may not bring out the required benefits or social gains to people because it may, in the first instance, you may not have considered the social implications of that particular policy or the economic implications of that particular policy, something like that. And in the end, you find that that policy cannot work, and therefore that policy cannot deliver the social gains as it is supposed to do. So, indeed, when you look at the rational choice theory, you have to look at the issue of rationalizing. How do you rationalize? What is the best way to do that, for example? If we have to make that choice. the best ways to do that is consult the people who are going to be the beneficiaries of that particular policy. It will help to understand the feelings. Right? If we have to come with a policy now, which is let's say government says, okay, from today onwards, immediately after Mother's Day next week, we will allow same-sex marriages. Right? Okay. What would happen? What would be the reaction from people?
Disappointed.
They'll be disappointed. And after that, they can riot, they can do anything. The churches will be up against government in arms. Our religion does not believe in this. God said this and God said that. And you don't do this. All sorts of things around. Right? Yeah. So you can see that coming up with policies, you need to look at different spheres, different areas, different stakeholders, and people are going to use that particular policy through a consultation, and that process can help you to come up with a rational way to choose the type of policy that you can have. So here, you note that when we talk about rationalization, it means you have to understand the values in society. Policies are made for citizens in society, right? And if you cannot understand the society values and their preferences, then it will be a policy in vain, because they're not going to take up to what you have brought up to them. So in this instance, you have to follow the following steps. One, can you do the weighting of the values? What are values, Esther? Society values, not this. Society values will be the norms, right? Norms as rules and regulations that are generally accepted by society as something which is good for them, right? Things that give them direction on how to act in that particular society. It includes beliefs, right? Customs, and all sorts of things that society holds as acceptable in their right. So those are the society values. So if society says no same-sex marriage, you cannot say, well, what should we do same-sex marriage as government policy? They will vote against that because it is against their society values, against their norms, beliefs, and customs. Now, so what do you need to do to rationalize? You need to do the weighting of the values on the ground. Are they in line with what society believes in or not? And also, try to identify as many alternatives as possible. How many alternatives would fit into this mix? Right. In other words, alternatives that can be in line with society values, alternatives that can give you better social gain, and also alternatives that everybody will accept. So these will be the ways through which you can choose your mechanism to rationalize and also try to assess the effectiveness of that particular policy. It's going to be effective, for example. If we implement it, it's going to be effective or not. Right? So here, it also helps you to choose what you think is a better alternative to meet those particular issues that you are going to go through. And as I mentioned earlier, try to conduct throughput analysis. That's what I talked about the throughput analysis. Everybody remember that? That's about the throughput analysis, what it is, and why it is important. I say the throughput analysis is an analysis that we conduct before we start to develop a policy, to understand and also maybe predict what may be an outcome which is not intended. I'll give you an example last time. You're going to give free education to all girls rather than complete their school and go long distances. They fall in love with the people around, they get pregnant, they're not complete. So they're not achieve their goal for those girls to complete. the pregnancy becomes a problem. So how do you address issues of distribution, for example? So you need to look at this and see how you can address this. That's the way you can come up with a rational way to implement, to develop and better implement a particular policy. Mention about the issue of the ratio, the cost and the benefits. That's just the cost benefit analysis that I mentioned. Because it helps you to weigh and also helps you to choose the alternative. If we decide to build a big school for everybody, but everybody walks up and down, are we going to get the gains or not? The people who drop out, those who, as I mentioned, don't get pregnant on the way, you don't get the gains that you want to have. So you must look at what can you do instead to try to address that type of an unexpected occurrence that may disturb your implementation and the final achievement of your goals as stated. So here, as a policy maker, when the person making processes, we look at all those things around. Right, you do first. No question, no answer. Okay. So, a rational choice theory, one interesting thing is a rational choice theory starts with the assumption. Rational choice theory starts with an assumption. When you choose something, right? It's just something that would you say it's just something like an assumption, right? You just assume. What good example can somebody bring about using the rational choice theory? Can I give you a good example or a better example? Joyce, how to use a rational choice theory? Can I give you a very good example? Okay. Let's assume, okay, to be in a relationship, boy and girl, or man and woman, is a choice. It's a choice or it's by force? It's a choice. How do people make choices in that instance?
In the instance where you want to be with a marriage, it's
Yeah.
linked to a relationship.
Yeah. How do you make your choice? To say yes, to say no. It's a choice, right? How do you make those choices?
If the person is someone you like or your type, the type of person that you want to be with, that's how you choose to
Type, you like, it's a complicated term to use. The type is not complicated to say what type is it? Or you said the type and whatever, you said the type and what? And your choice.
You
Or
like.
you like, yeah. So what is like? What is to like?
To like is to love.
You know? Love. Okay. And
It depends if you have the same values.
so you so go back to values. Okay. But you discover that actually that type of relationship is an assumption relationship. Right? You are two different people from different places, whatever it is. Your choice is based on assumption. You assume because I like him. I think he also has liked him. Right? His values and my values in the end will meet together. Something like that. People assume. I think his value and I love. And I think as we proceed, we'll enjoy our love. It's still an assumption, right? Yes. But 2-3 years down the line, when it's so different person, they're very different. Right? That's why there is divorce. Divorce comes because of the rational choices theory, lack of alternatives, and the assessment. Right? There's the money,